if we don't believe in divorce, why do we do it so much? As you and I look around, we see so many families who are dealing with divorce. We see so many families who are struggling. And as a matter of fact, nobody has ever gotten married with the design or the desire to divorce. Everybody, when they're getting married, thinks they're going to be married happily ever after and that they'll never have any issues. And so if everybody gets married with the expectation that they're going to be happy, why do so many people divorce? Well, I want us to look at 4 reasons why this happens. What are 4 things that lead to divorce so often? And in looking at those things, maybe it helps us to explain why divorce happens. And hopefully it will help us to warn ourselves before it happens in our relationship that we have today. So why is it that people divorce if they don't believe in it? I think first and foremost it's because people have fallen for the world's definition of love. As you read in the Bible, the word for love is agapeo, or as we say in our colloquial English, agape. And what that is an unnatural form of love. You see, you look at some of these other words for love, it's natural. You are going to love your family members. You're going to love somebody you're romantically attached to. But agape is unnatural because it is a surrender of self in order to serve or to help another person. And so what marriage should be about is marriage should be the joining of 2 into one flesh. Just as you read in Ephesians 5:22-33, you see where husbands love their wives, or wives submit to their husbands, and they treat one another as Christ and the church treat one another. You see, a husband needs to surrender himself to his wife and her needs, and a wife should surrender herself to her husband and her husband's needs. And when that definition of love is understood and it's practiced, it makes marriage so much better. Many times we suffer in marriage because we feel like our needs are not being met. That's why it's important to recognize love. That does not mean you need to go your whole life and not have needs met. But that does mean that you should be forgiving, that you should be full of grace, that you should be full of kindness to your spouse, because love serves. Romans chapter 5 and verse 8 says that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. And what you see there is this idea of sacrificial love. God loves us whether we deserved it or not, which is a good thing because none of us deserve love. But God still showed it, and God still gave the ultimate sacrifice for each one of us. We reflect God's relationship to us in our marriage. Your husband may not deserve to be loved. Your wife may not deserve to be loved. But when you make that vow, you show that you love them anyway. When we think about love, it's important that we see the role that we play in our marriage. The only person in this world you can change is not your spouse, not your children, not your parents, not your coworkers. The only person you truly have control to change is you. And so when you show love, many times that love will be reflected back. When you show grace, many times that grace will be reflected back as well. A second reason why so many people divorce, even though they don't believe in it, is because they're emotionally bankrupt. Now, maybe this is something they've had even before their life, before they got married. Maybe it's something that develops because of small things happening. But many times people are emotionally bankrupt and they're just ready to surrender. If you feel that place right now, if you're in that spot right now, go back and remember the vows that you said when you got married. To love and honor in sickness and health, for richer, for poorer, till death do us part. You made a promise before your friends and before God. That promise was important. Many times in a wedding, we focus on the dress, we focus on the colors of the flowers, we focus on the music, we focus on the ceremony. Our focus needs to be on those vows and the decision that we made when we pledged our life to your spouse. That's important for us to remember. A lot of times we become emotionally bankrupt in our marriage because it becomes something about me or something about I instead of about we. And what I mean by that is we begin to think individually. We don't look for input from our spouse. We don't look for a sharing from our spouse. We don't want to meet our spouse's needs. It suddenly becomes all about us. And when that happens, when we have an individualistic mindset, it makes it where it's very hard to stay married. We also see, when we're thinking about emotional bankruptcy, is things tend to escalate. Many marriages, when they break up because of adultery, or they break up because of financial issues. Those usually have a root somewhere else. Small things are planted along the way, and when they're not taken care of, those things grow larger and larger and larger. Don't be emotionally bankrupt. Fix the problem. Fix the situation when you have opportunity, when it's easier to take care of. The third reason why many people divorce, even when they don't believe in it, is because of a confusion in gender roles. What do I mean by that? I mean this. What is it that a husband should do? What is it that is the wife's responsibility? With both husbands and wives usually working outside the home, who's going to do the housework, the making of the beds, the cooking, and the laundry? With a husband and a wife working outside the home, who is going to be doing the financial situation and determining where money is spent? That needs to be a team sort of thing. There needs to be quite a bit of discussion before marriage, but if it's not done before marriage, it needs to be done during marriage, of gender roles. What you expect when you get married from your wife. What is expected from your husband when you get married. How you expect them to respond to certain situations. It's so very important when we come up with those things about decision making. It's important that there be a team effort with these decisions, with finances especially, but also in every aspect of life. The fourth reason why we divorce when we don't believe in it is because in our world, very rarely is there a sense of permanence. You remember your parents' washing machine or say vacuum cleaner? They bought that thing a generation ago, and that thing has lived longer than you and I have. It's still going. Now you run to the store and you buy a clothes washer or you buy a vacuum cleaner. You may get 2 years out of it. Things today aren't built anywhere close to the way things were built generations ago. Marriage sometimes is that way. Too many people think, it's not permanent. If I get where I don't feel like my needs are met in this marriage, I'm just going to leave it. Too many people begin looking around and saying, I think I would rather be married to this person or that person, and we forget that we've pledged our lives to the spouse that we're with. Very few people keep their promises. Very few people remember those vows and feel guilt when those vows are broken. It doesn't matter what you've been taught or what you believe when it comes to divorce. If the world's thinking gets inside of you, if the world gets in your heart, your marriage is going to suffer. And that's why many people who don't believe in divorce actually find themselves in the very middle of it. As we close, look at 1 John chapter 2, beginning in verse 15. And that passage says, "Do not love the world or the things of the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For the things of this world, the lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, and pride of life, are not of the Father, but they are of the world. And the world is passing away before our eyes." Let me invite you to stay married, to learn to love your spouse even more. Let me invite you to honor those promises, those vows in which you made. Honor yourself and honor your marriage in the way in which you treat your spouse.